Wow. Got it. Oh, it gives me the option to leave.
To not be, yeah, no, I like that too.
I
Everybody
know Zoom's
welcome.
definitely like figured the pandemic out.
Everybody welcome to the 2 Degrees podcast. And here today I have the pleasure of having the lovely Alaina Huffman joining me all the way across the country. Different time zones. That's been a thing that I had to coordinate too, because I almost missed my interview yesterday because I didn't realize we crossed a time zone. I didn't know Florida had 2 time zones. So
So what do you
here
want?
we are.
Central? No.
Yes.
Are you on East?
No, we're
Central.
central now. So because we were in Miami at first, and so we were synced up with Toronto, and then now we're synced up with Winnipeg.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I thought we'd have to go a little further east because we're further west because we're also doing New Orleans. So once we get there, then I know I'm going to be in Central Time. But I didn't know Alabama and this part of Florida would have also been in that time zone.
I wouldn't have thought that. I know Texas is, but I wouldn't have thought that either.
Yeah. So with that, before we started recording, we were talking about bikes, and that was definitely something to consider coming on this trip too. Was I wanted to get one of those electric bikes just because it'd be a lot more efficient to get into the cities, but I sold my friend my bike when I left because I gave up all my stuff at my place, and then he didn't know it was a fixed speed. And so he just said, you got to take it back. So then now I'm stuck with a bike, and then didn't end up getting the electric bike either. So yeah, I'm living the push bike.
Well, I was saying to you, and just for like your audience, like I was living in New York, and I felt like a badass, like riding my bike through the city, because you're that like going through Soho and all these big trucks and passing 4 lanes of traffic on your freaking bike. But I'd be like huffing it across like the Brooklyn Bridge or the Manhattan Bridge. And like, I'm like, if you stop, you're fucked. So you got to keep going. And someone will just like zoom past you, like, sipping tea with their pinky out. And I'm like, they're on a like electric city bike. And it's like, you fucker.
No, but like the thing with that too is like, I don't know. They're just getting faster and faster. Cause like I've seen.
Well, some of them definitely don't need to be riding, like they need to be on the street. Even I feel as a bike person, if you're using it as a vehicle in a city, you need to be on the road. Like, and I will say this, like, take up space. A lot of people, when they ride on the road, they try to like shove themselves on the side so cars can go past. No, you're a fucking vehicle. Take up space so cars either have to go around you or slow down for your own safety and for theirs. Like, but I'm now, like, no, I'm a vehicle on this road.
But respectfully now with that, where it's like a lot of the electric bike users that I've seen, like they don't use bike signals. They don't use.
No.
And it's like, so what, I guess, where's the line in terms of, okay, if you're going to be using the main road as your lane or avenue, like you technically should need a license to operate that thing, especially if you're going over 30 miles on one of those things and you're just comfortably cruising without a helmet, and and you're competing for space with proper vehicles. I think it's like it's just, that's the thing that grinds my gears, no pun intended, but I do have fixed speed, so it's only 1 gear. But it just comes down to where it's like, at least know the basic signals. If you're going to make a right, if you're going to make a left, if you're going to stop or slow down. And it's like, sure, you're going faster than me, but then it's, if you're in front of me and then you're going to stop and make it turn, let me know somehow.
Use your signal. Yeah.
So
this one.
I think.
For sure. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. And, same thing with like riding where there's pedestrians and or like tourists, for example, like the Brooklyn Bridge is a great example. If you're riding in a bike lane, you can't expect everybody to understand bike etiquette. I've so many times like almost ran into tourists like trying to take a picture with the city in the background, and they're being tourists. So I have to be respectful of pedestrians also, I'm a vehicle in that situation.
Yeah.
So, but you know, not every city is, you know, Vancouver, where they've decided to block off major roads just to be bike paths. And I think that's been obviously great for the green initiative in Vancouver. I know it's been a kind of a hot topic because it's a lot of tax dollars going towards it, but I think there's, you know, there's positives and negatives in all of it.
But then now,
aware.
so there's two things that when it comes to being on the roads that I don't think I'd want to undertake. One is driving in London, England, just because I don't know if I'd be able to adapt to driving on the other side of the road with the aggressiveness that they drive with down there. And the other one is biking in New York. Like there's a whole subculture in terms of how to do it properly. And like what are some tips I'd say or would you share in terms of if you're gonna bike in New York, these are some things that's gonna help you stay alive?
I mean, that, like I said, like take up space, you're a vehicle on the road, driving in places that there's not, you know, designated bike, like, so I would drive from ride from Brooklyn into Soho. There's parts of the road where like, I'm not gonna go on the sidewalk for obvious reasons, and yet there's no bike path, and then there's parked cars. So I would say always look in the rear view or in the side view mirror because you can see people getting out of your car. You don't wanna get doored. I always look for the tires moving, you know, brake, reverse lights if people are coming from the parked side of the road. But it's really just about like really being aware of all of your surroundings and everything that's going on. I mean, that applies for walking in New York. Just being aware of like everything that's around you. But I will say driving on the other side of the road. So I was in New Zealand for a month and I was doing conventions. Shout out to Bill and Adele, who they've brought me over to New Zealand for Armageddon Expo several times.
Oh, wow.
And this one time they were like, we can offer you 3 shows. It'll be over a month though. You know, you'll have to be here. And they brought my whole family out and we turned it into this beautiful vacation, and we road tripped the whole southern island of New Zealand.
Nice.
And he rented me a car and it was really, really nice. And I was like, how am I gonna drive on the other side of the road? New Zealand, you know, a lot of it's countryside, so it's a little easier, but I will say it actually helped to be in a more urban area because then you're paying attention to what everybody else is doing. When I was on the road by myself, I was second guessing everything. So I was like, wait, my instinct is to do this, so I've got to do the opposite. Gotcha. But you know, like I spent a lot of time growing up in Tokyo, and I'm not sure I'd want to drive there either for that same reason, the hustle and the bustle and the narrow roadways and everybody double parks, just like in New York. Driving in New York is another one I was really afraid to do. And then I was like, oh, it's fine. You just learn the culture. You know, none of the rules apply.
That's one thing that I've kind of realized is when there's accidents, it's usually like a cultural thing. You learn to drive in different places and you realize that when you're in that place, like there's not a lot of accidents because everybody knows how to drive there. And like, I go back to being on like the back of those motorcycle island and they're just going through everything. And I'm just trying to hold on for dear life. And it's like, if they took this driving style and brought it to North America, obviously there'd be accidents. So it's like it's interesting seeing how other cultures drive and then just having that moment of I'm not gonna try and drive here at all.
Well, like my daughter's learning to drive right now. She's technically got her license, but in Washington, we live in Washington State. You can pass your driver's test at 15, but you're not fully licensed till you're 16. So she's been driving like 6 or 7 months now since her birthday in May. And so often we'll be like on the freeway or something and I'm like, slow down, there's brake lights, slow down. And she's like, I'm just going the speed limit. I'm like, yes, but there's cars in front of you. Like, she's like, yeah, but we're on the freeway. They should be going 70. I'm like, You
Yeah.
have to go with the flow of traffic. And it's teaching that, right? So just even the basics of teaching a kid in your own city, or LA, driving in LA, you know, I had to learn to adapt to like 5 or 6 lane freeways, which we don't have in Canada.
Yeah. Well, Toronto, we got the 401 in Toronto. That's 16 lanes across, I believe.
Right.
But no, it's funny too, because like I'm on this trip with my partner and she has her learner's permit, but now to drive a truck that's fully loaded with stuff in the back, there's a whole set of other things that you need to consider as well. So it's like you can't take the turns as quick as you used to, or else everything in the back is going to fall over, or you can't brake too hard, or you can't accelerate too hard. And it's like, if she learns to properly like drive this, oh, she could drive anything. Like so it's like we're trying to find opportunities to, in empty parking lots, Walmart parking lots, to give her some driving hours.
Right.
But you brought up,
ready.
You brought up a good segue point. You brought up conventions, and you are like the CW convention queen. Like you're just, you did Smallville, you did Supernatural, you did the 100, which I got to meet you on. And it's like, in terms of conventions, like, give some insight about that, because that's a completely separate world that a lot of actors don't get to experience, because the shows that they do just don't do the convention. So it's like, but I've heard that there have been actors who, like, that's what burns them out, where it's the convention thing.
Interesting.
How's it for you?
So I like to say that I've earned my geek cred. Like, I've certainly done a lot of genre television. I didn't mean to. It just keeps on happening. I'm on another show right now that I was saying, convention circuit as well. And I consider it's again, not something that I would have built my career around or knowingly anyways, but it's been a world that's been very good to me, and I'm very grateful for it. I like to say it's our version of touring. You know, we make these shows in dark warehouses months before anybody sees them. Oftentimes, you know, our characters are pegged against each other and people think we all hate each other. And then we show up and we stand on stage and we're joking and shooting the shit, or even on our Instagram or social media as we're, you know, connected. And I think it's sort of this give back to me. I definitely don't think it's for everybody. It's definitely a different aspect of what we do. But I always feel like it's an opportunity to really connect with people. And I can't tell you how many experiences I've had where people have come to my table like a family, and they're like, we grew up watching Stargate, like since they were little. Friday nights was family night, and we'd order pizza and watch Stargate. And now these kids are towering over their parents, and it's something that's brought these families together. And it's so special, and literally all over the world. I've seen this, from Brazil to Tokyo to New Zealand to Toronto and everywhere in between. And I don't know, it's something that's really, really special to me. So I feel really lucky to do it. I've also had the opportunity, I take my kids with me on a lot of these trips. That's and fun. We call them mommy trips. Yeah. So I take one kid at a time if I'm going to London or Germany or Paris or wherever, and we get some special time, and they get to see what I do. And I also think for the fandom of these shows, it's really a way for them to connect, because they've created these online cultures and connections. And I've seen, this is so sweet. I was in, I think it was Cleveland or Philadelphia, somewhere. And this woman came up to my table and she was talking to me, and she's like, I'm so nervous. I met this woman in my Facebook support group for the cancer that I've been fighting, and she's from London or somewhere, and we're meeting here today. And they met in front of my table.
That's
awesome.
It was
so cute.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
yeah.
Like,
So I
Definitely.
could see maybe it burn people out. I think if you're a lead on a show and you're doing it because maybe you think you have to, or the money's too good, or the opportunities are too good. But I would say to that, if it's not the right time to go on tour or to spend that time engaging, don't do it. It'll be there when you're done. There's the convention circuit's been around. I think it's only going to get stronger, particularly as we get back to real life. LA had a huge convention this last weekend, and so many people turned out for it. So I just think I love it. I'm grateful for the experience.
That's fun. Now,
Yeah.
you say that you bring your kids, typically one at a time, but how do they interpret it? Do they kind of also see? I mean, they're old enough now, but then when they were younger, did they get that you were this character that an entire fandom of people like looked up to, or did they just see it as a time to get away from the house, or how do they perceive these conventions and seeing you go to work?
So all of my kids have had like a crib and a high chair in my trailers. I've been working as I feel like I built my family as I built my career. So every single one of my kids, I was either pregnant while working or had a new baby on set with me. So I just think it's part of their experience and their upbringing, and a lot of the shows they don't watch. In fact, The 100 was the first show that Charlie, my daughter, my younger daughter, came with me when I did my studio test to test Nikki's look for The 100. So we were there for like 8 or 9 hours, and Jason Rothenberg's daughter was there. So her and Charlie were just running around having a blast. And I had actually worked with a lot of that crew. A lot of them had come from Smallville. So I was like meeting up with the old friends, and they remembered Charlie from when she was a baby. And so I just think it's kind of the way my kids have grown up. But she started watching The 100 and became a really big fan. She's a really big fan of Louisa's. She's like, one time I was like, babe, can you help me? I had printed out my sides for work the next day. And I was like, can you help me with my scenes? She's really good. She makes me word perfect. And as you know, The 100 was a word perfect show. Yep. So I didn't ever want to screw that up. So I'm like, I handed my script to Charlie. And this one day I handed it to her and I was like, can you read my scene with me while I'm cooking or doing laundry or whatever? And she goes, I get to be a Maury? I was like, yeah. She's like, I love a Maury. And so the next time she was on set, I made sure she got to meet Louisa, and it was really cute. Louisa was, of course, such a sweetheart. So I think, to answer your question, I think it's just part of included them in my life. And then they do get, honestly, it came up kind of selfishly because I felt like I had these beautiful experiences. I would be like in London or in Paris or somewhere, and I'm usually exhausted because we fly in, on a Friday in the morning, which means you've traveled all night, and then you have an event that you're hosting that night, and then you work all day Saturday, you work all day Sunday, and you go home Sunday night or Monday. And in between, maybe have 3 or 4 hours, and you're tired. Yeah. So I would find that I'd go to the hotel and just be like, oh, and I was like, God, what a waste of a trip. I'm in Paris or I'm in wherever. And I'm like, if I brought my kids, I would take them to a museum. So I just decided I would start taking my kids, and then that way I'd be more of a tourist. And that's kind of how it worked. Yeah.
Now, have they shown interest to get into acting because of you or because of whatever? And then what kind of advice do you end up giving them when it comes to that?
So I have been approached so many times, particularly when we lived in Los Angeles. We lived in LA for a really long time, and I would get scouted like I was a walking ATM. My kids are mixed race, and they've got this big, beautiful hair, and so people would see us, and I've gotten scouted by so many agents, mostly modeling, some commercial agents. And I never took any meetings, mainly because it's a big job, and I don't think people realize what the job is of a stage mom or stage parent. I don't even want to go to my own, you know, auditions and pressers and this kind of stuff. Like it's a lot of work. And so I sort of resisted it for a long time. But my one daughter, Hannah, things just keep happening for her. I mean, she's been on the Ellen show a bunch of times because we used to live in Burbank, and they would scout and they'd have her come in and do these little with self-tapes. Mm-hmm. So Hannah does all my auditions with me, and I'm like, you're good. Like instinctually, she's a really good performer, and she's naturally an artist. She's a what's it called? She paints. What's the term? I'm totally losing it.
Prodigy?
Anyway. No. I was gonna say visual artist, but not. Anyway, she paints, she draws, she writes. She's just an artist in terms of the way she expresses herself.
Okay.
And so I just directed my first short, and I wanted to write a story that was a story that I understood. And so I wrote a story about a mother and a daughter, and I asked Hannah, would you feel comfortable being in it? And at first she was resistant. She's like, I don't want to mess up your movie. You're spending all this money on it and this time, and it's going to be your showpiece. And I was like, trust me. Like, if I think you can do it, you've got to trust me. Particularly as a director, I had to understand that I could, you know, garner her trust.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I promise I won't make you look bad. I promise I'm going to get the best takes. And so it was a good exercise for me. And for her. And then she was resistant to it, but she really actually enjoyed it. And then just a few weeks ago, I was talking to a friend of mine, and we're talking about another movie that I want to direct that I'm putting together. I'm putting a deck together for it. And he was like, hey, do your kids act at all? I have this movie. And so he's hired her, and she's doing his little Christmas movie. We're shooting that in January in New Mexico. So I think, and she's actually just signed with a modeling agency last year as well. So Hannah definitely is moving towards that direction. And gosh, I feel so lucky to have had a 25-year career to advise her, you know? And I'm like, you don't have to take all my advice. And if you just choose not to take this path, it's totally your choice. But if you do, like, I feel really grateful. Like you'll have avoided so many of the pitfalls that I think I fell into just because I didn't have the experience. I'm sure she'll be directing and producing far before me if she gets into that path. Just to have the confidence of knowing like that's the natural evolution if you choose it.
Yeah.
Because I was always asked when I was in my 20s, like, oh, do you want to direct? Do you want to produce? And I was like, absolutely not. I had no interest, but at the time I had 4 little kids, and I was, you know, going from series to series, and I was working all the time, and I was trying to nurture my relationship with my husband and just live a full life. And I didn't have the capacity for it. And now that my kids are older and I'm divorced and I think I know more, I'm like, oh, I actually know what I'm doing. I have more to say. I have a lot of relationships. I have, even now, I just pitched 2 projects to a friend of mine who's an executive at Netflix. Like I have those kinds of relationships just by virtue of being in this business for 25 years. So, yeah.
Nice. So then does that mean you feel like this is slowly becoming part of that evolutionary stage now where you're going to lean into directing some more or producing some more?
Absolutely. That's absolutely my goal. You know, the ideal, I love acting. I've always felt this way. I'm like, you know, look at Judi Dench and Helen Mirren and Anthony Hopkins. Like I'll work when I work. I work when, you know, when I'm not working. I'm really grateful to be in a place in my career where a little bit of work is still a really great career to me. I don't, you know, we talk about this like when you go to film school or when I think people sort of think about our careers and the business that we're in, they feel like if you're not on the cover of People magazine or Met Gala, that you haven't made it. And there's a very middle class of actor and producer and director for that matter. Like, I mean, I did a very small film certificate at NYFA. And, you know, all the professors talk about Scorsese and Michael Bay and, and I'm like, that's great. We can absolutely study them, but there's a huge population of directors, you don't even know their names.
Yeah.
And they're working and they're making money and they're being creative. And, so if I can move into sort of a path where I work a little bit as an actor and I direct a few episodes of television a year or an MOW or something like that, I don't want to burn myself out. I certainly enjoy a really, a peaceful life. I like going to my kids' basketball games. My daughter's really heavy into gymnastics and that requires a lot of my time. So yes, I definitely feel like that's a path that I want to be on. And I started it 7 years ago, but at the time, my youngest son was 3. He'll be 10 next week. And at the time I was like, oh, this is no job for a single mom with 4 kids. It's too much work. It's too hard. But it's there, just not right now. And so I've been working towards it slowly. And I think by the time he's like 14 or 15, if I can move into a place where it's a little bit easier on me in terms of the home front, then that'll be the perfect way into that kind of a career.
Fun. I look forward to seeing
That's my goal.
What you're gonna put together and what's gonna be a Alaina Huffman production. Do you have any like concepts in mind that you're starting to flush out that you're looking forward to putting on camera?
Yeah, so I have this one project that was pitched to me like 10 years ago by a dear friend of mine. He wanted to direct it and produce. So my friend wanted to direct it and he sent me the script, and it's this great little sort of psychological thriller horror. It's like one location, a lot of really great graphics. And we never really got it off the ground. We visited it 3 or 4 times, and he actually went on to become this, quite efficient indie producer. He would produce 5 or 6 small, like $1 million movies a year kind of thing. And he actually passed away, not this last August, the August before. And we started our careers together. He passed away from COVID. And I didn't even realize this, but this last August, it just like popped into my head. I was like, I need to make that movie. And I knew the writer was in our email thread at a certain point. So I emailed her and said, I really want to make this movie. And she goes, you just emailed me on the anniversary of Ash's death.
Oh, wow.
And I know. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to make this movie. So I'm determined to direct this movie this year. I'm trying to raise the money, and I'm looking at doing it for very little. Again, it's small, one location, and it will, very small cast. I'm going to call favors from a lot of my friends. But yeah, I think my goal is that if I came up during the early 2000s when Miramax was, I feel like in their golden era, and some of my favorite movies were these like small, The Yards is one of my favorite movies that Miramax did, and it had this great cast, Requiem for a Dream, Memento, all of these like really gritty, visually beautiful art house, films, which I feel like that genre of film has now gone into episodic television with, streamers, and the amount of money and production value that's going, and the writing. This is what people, I think, don't really understand. The reason television is so good right now is writers have full creativity. They're not waiting for time to give them advertising dollars because they didn't fucking offend anybody. They're just writing great stories.
Yeah.
And Netflix and Amazon and all of, Apple are going like, we want you, Shonda Rhimes, or whomever, writer, to be fully creative.
Yeah.
And we're getting great fucking content out of it, Not to say that there's not a place for advertising, but it's just, I'm around when you were on a show and you had to sort of like wait till Wednesday, and that's not the way that television works anymore.
Yeah.
So, and we're seeing the result, right? We're getting great television. So, so yeah, that's sort of my, my visual, desire. But really just with my relationships and my years of being, you know, Warner Brothers and all my relationships there, I mean, ideally I would go, you know, do a handful of shows. I've sort of decided to base myself out of Vancouver for that very reason. There's so much production going on and I have such a huge support team here. And then venture out, like I said, when my kids are a little bit older.
Nice. I was just speaking with a friend of mine, Brendan McKnight. He's currently on The Flash, and he mentioned where it's like before, in order to direct an episode on one of those shows, you just had to have a short film out there. But then now I think the stipulation he was saying, like, you have to have a short film at least submitted into an Oscar nominated film festival, something like that. So it's like, is that also part of your, I guess, focus in making these shorts, is to submit to film festivals?
So actually it's the opposite. It used to be that you had to have like a short that was in a festival circuit that's maybe a high accredited festival. Now it's, and then you had to take the class and you had to be sort of, Warner Brothers has this class, and I've got the book, the Directors Tell Stories. It's based on that book and the two women that teach the class. Now, and I've interviewed for that class and I've submitted stuff that I've done for that. Now it's more, the show has to say, we're gonna hire her, put her through the works so that we can nurture this. Because I think what ended up happening was so many people wanted to get in. It was actually supposed to be a minority program, so women and people of color. And I think that was really great. ABC also has one. All the big studios have one. And now it's more that if they see that you are interested and you have potential, a lot of actors can negotiate it into their deals. It's not the only way to do it. You know, you can certainly go and do the indie film world, which is what a lot of directors had to do, right? You look at Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, they had to come up on their own, write their own shit, make their own shit. My goal in making a short was, it's a resume. It's my piece to say, I mean, I feel personally, and not out of arrogance, just out of confidence, I have 5 friends who are executives at the studios and networks.
Yeah.
Friends that I have dinners with them and their spouses. So knowing I can show them the piece that I've invested in myself, and I can show that I can tell a story, right? Just like actors, we often get to a place where we're like, I don't want to audition anymore. Well, you've got to show that you can play the character.
Yeah.
Right? And I mean, I do think there's an element of our business where you're kind of like, really? Certain roles should just be offers. But at the same time, you know, you've got to go in for the interview. And so my short is my piece. I think I will submit it to festivals. It's not quite done yet. But my main goal was to be able to email my friends and say, hey, watch this. Now let's talk strategy.
That's like I guess the dilemma that I'm facing right now, where it's like I have the short, it's all edited, but then it's like, do I go the festival route, or do I just put it on YouTube and just, it's out there? What would you say to that?
Oh, I would say definitely do festivals. I wouldn't release it for free at all. I would say absolutely do the festivals. Because, you know, the other thing, like, people always ask me, oh, if I wanted to be an actor, how do I get involved? I always say your local community, wherever you live, like, especially more so now than ever. You don't have to live in LA or New York anymore. You can live in the Midwest. But if you get involved in your local community, you're connecting with like-minded people. So I feel like the same way with festivals, right? You're submitting it, you're showing up to the festival, you're meeting other filmmakers, you're gonna have drinks with them, you guys are gonna decide, hey, let's collaborate. I've got this thing I wanna do to learn the business. I think it's, you know, it's all networking.
Yeah.
So I would say, A, keep making content, and B, get it out to as many people as possible in the communities of filmmakers.
Noted. All right. I'll keep that in mind.
Yeah. I want to see it.
I'll send you a link, and yeah, I'd definitely love to hear your feedback on that.
Yeah.
Would you say then your focus is just directing, or do you want to end up directing a project that you've written?
So I have convinced myself that I could write, and I've set up like a discipline, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go to Starbucks every Monday and sit there for 3 hours. And just, I talked to a friend of mine who has written a couple of books, and I was like, what is your process of like writing a book? And she's like, you like to work out. It's like going to the gym. You're not gonna be strong and fit and be able to do, box jumps if you don't go to the gym. So it's a discipline, and you set yourself up on a schedule. And so I did that. I'm not a writer. I'm a storyteller. So my short, I would say the story is by me. I know the story is by me. And we went through about 6 or 7 drafts, and all of them were my story ideas, and they were written by somebody else. So I absolutely love the creative process of producing and creative producing, being a storyteller and developing a character. I mean, Lily, what I want to see, which would, transition right as a director. So I think I'll have hands on all of it, but to sit down and write dialogue and script, and that's not now. I'm open to that being my path in the future.
Yeah.
I have such a high regard for writers. I think it is such an incredible craft. It's something that completely eludes me. Like, I feel like I like to run. I love running. I never want to run a marathon, but I'll run every day. I'll run 3, 5, 7 miles.
Fair. That's actually a pretty good analogy as well, where it's like, yeah, you don't have to do it all, but like, I guess now in terms of that collaborative process, I don't know, I've always found it difficult to find the right person. And you want to direct this project, you want somebody else to write it. What are the questions you ask them? Do you look for the resume? Do you ask how the story resonates with them and then give them free reign? How do you go about looking for somebody for one of your projects?
So the girl, Katrina is her name, she's a friend of mine, and we just had one conversation, and I said, this is the story I want to tell. And she was like, great, I'll send you a draft in 3 days. And what she sent me, it was only 16 pages, and I read it, and I was like, okay, that's really great. It was easy, I guess. It was kind of like dating. You're like, you try it, you have a couple text conversations, you decide to go on a date. It goes well or it doesn't, and no hard feelings if it doesn't, and if it does, great. I don't know, I'm not a big believer in round peg, square hole, square peg, round hole, whatever it is.
Yeah,
yeah, like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and that's okay. I have a project right now that I absolutely love, and the treatment's been written, and I just built a deck for it, and I just submitted it to a big production company, and it needs development. Like, we'll need to hire a writer to do the script, but it's based on a true story, and I want the person I'm collaborating with, she's willing. She's like, oh, I'll let it go, and the story can be told. And I was like, no, you're going to be a consulting producer, because I want it to be your story. So then we'll go through a process of finding a writer for that, and I'm sure there is one. I actually haven't crossed that bridge yet. But the Kat, who I did my short with, she's got a couple of great scripts, and her and I are like, we just have really good rapport. So I think once you find your person, right? Like, Soderbergh loves Julia Roberts. It's just, why fuck with it? Uma Thurman and Tarantino. Like, if it works, it works. Stick with it.
That's fun. So I guess with respect to that, who is like a cast that you would want to work with on one of your films?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, so The Apartment, the movie that I want to make, there's no one like actor. This is really a cool experience that I've had also. I interned for a casting director a couple of years ago. I thought maybe casting was something that I would be interested in doing. And I was like, oh, I was thinking like, oh, that could be a nice transition. I think sometimes, you know, as actors, we get to a point where even though you make enough money or sometimes you don't, there comes a point where you're not fulfilled because there's just maybe not enough going on for you. And I was like, how do I feel more purposeful and more fulfilled? And so I called a casting director friend of mine and I took her out for dinner and I was like, you know, I would just like to learn more. Like maybe this is something that I could see myself transitioning. And I was like, what if I interned for you? I ran a couple of your sessions and then in between you could teach me contracts. Because that's what casting is, right? Is contracts, understanding budgets, and then bringing in actors that A, fit the role physically, emotionally, personality-wise, but also financially, right? You got to look at yourself as a headhunter, and who can you get for what's allotted for this budget? And what you realize when you sit in the role, and it's kind of gives me peace of mind. I think every actor should have the experience of directing or producing or running casting sessions to understand it's not personal. Yeah. Like you literally, I've always heard of casting as like falling in love. You can have this idea of who your perfect partner is and you can write down their description and everything on paper, but until they walk into the room and that spark, you don't know, right? And it could be somebody that you didn't envision. They come in and they take the role. So I don't have a particular person that I want to work with. My favorite actor is Al Pacino. I just think he's amazing. But I'm not sure, like, man, even Malik Yoba was, I know you worked with him on, was it Alphas you worked with him?
Designated Survivor.
Oh, Designated Survivor. Oh, that's right, that's right. Kind of like, there's a lot of things that don't need directing because he's a veteran actor. Yeah. But then there was things that I wanted to do and say, and I had to find a way to communicate with him that wasn't our personal relationships. Going into directing is, I know certainly for me, doing so much episodic television, the directors are often the guest star. They're coming in, they're trying to make their day, they're trying to get rehired, they're not trying to rock the boat, yet they have something to say and they don't want to lose their job. And oftentimes when you're in a series regular, you don't get a lot of direction from directors because A, you probably know your character better than they do. Yeah. And B, they're kind of like, they trust you. So they're like, okay, go do your thing. I'm going to work with maybe the guest star or make sure the DP is getting what I want or make sure the, you know, camera department is, you know, finding my shot. So I think that would be the most intimidating aspect of me, even though I'm very comfortable talking to actors. So I don't have anybody in particular that I'm like, oh, I have to work with them. Yeah. I think I'll get excited as opportunities present themselves.
Nice. Has there been like a memorable interaction that you've had with a director that's kind of stayed with you and you're going to take into your directorial career?
Oh, I like that. I really appreciate and respect when a director comes on set with a very just confident and ease about them. I feel like when there's a collaborative spirit and a desire to play together. I don't think I've really had an experience where I felt like, wow, they really drew out a performance other than giving me space. So I think space, you know, giving people space and comfort to know, like my daughter, for example, she was really nervous at this one scene that was quite emotional in our short. And to be honest with you, she didn't really hit the emotional beats, but what she did worked. And she was she was nervous about it. And I don't know if it's because I'm her mom. She felt more confident to talk to me as the director. And she said her leg kept on shaking. She was really nervous. And she asked me, and she was like, she even said this to me the other night. She's like, you know, Mom, I came to you and I was like, I don't know what to do about this. And I said to her, you know, just be present and you'll figure it out. And she was like, what? What kind of direction is that? But she's like, I did. I went out on the patio and I had a conversation with this person. And I had a conversation with this person. And I was able to come up with my own solution. And so I think it was just giving her the freedom. I was like, we got time. You know, I was ahead of my schedule, which is really nice. So in that moment, I was like, do you want more? And I know as an actor, sometimes when you're done, you're done. Yeah. Like the last thing you want is 4 more takes. Yeah. You know, for me anyway, I'm like, I'm going to give it to you. And I hope you're ready, camera department. And I hope you're ready, other actor, because I just get it done. Mm-hmm. I'm going to show up and I don't need 8 takes.
One thing that came like as a learning curve for me is storyboarding as a director. I've been told, and like I've adapted that and brought that into the works that I've directed. What's your take on storyboarding? Are you a fan of that? Do you not need it sometimes?
I storyboard my my vision. It really came together when I sat with my DP. And I really loved the DP that I worked with. And I was willing to, you know, I was completely open. I got, I mean, storyboarding is hard, like stick figures and like, you know, you're trying to draw a comic strip. I don't know moving forward if that's something that I'll always use. I definitely wrote down the shots that I wanted, my goal for shots that I wanted. I think, you know, they always say you live and die by your prep. And I think that my main focus in prepping would be to really be connected with the actors, because you know, if you've got a professional camera department and your crew is on it, this is all technical and it's going to get done. But if performance isn't there, you're going to kill it on time, right? So you've got to make sure that there's a comfortability. And a lot of times, like I remember asking an editor, I was like, what's your advice having edited years of television? What are the pitfalls mistakes that directors make? And she said, they kill so much time on the master. I use this much of the top and this much of the end, if that. The master should be a beautiful rehearsal, get it and move on. Yeah. Even though because you're lighting the world, right? So you're setting up your master for anybody who isn't aware. It's the establishing shot. You've got a big wide, which takes sometimes an hour to light. But then from there you move in and you push in and you punch in and you go from whatever side. I mean, you could start in and move out. That's a creative take on directing as well. But typically television, we go wide and we punch in 2 or 3 shot and over. And she's like, you know, I feel like so many directors waste so much time and they do 8 takes of the master. Everything's right here. It's close and tight. Yeah. So I really love that. And I felt like, even I was showing my friend my short the other day, he's like, how did you get so much coverage? Like, and you only did it in 2 days. And I'm like, I didn't waste time. Nice. I got my master and I moved on. Yeah. Even when I was ahead of time, I know my AD was like, we got like 20 more minutes. I was like, I'm ready. I got it. Just because you have time doesn't mean you have to use it. Yeah. No, that's fair. Because you don't know what hiccup you're going to run into along the way. Yeah. There's a movie called The Tribe. It's foreign language. And I say foreign language because it is Ukrainian Sign Language.
to the point
Cool.
where they don't even put the subtitles, where it's either you
Wow.
know what they're saying or you just have to follow the story, and it's all shot in masters, so you can see the entire scene, you see the reactions, you see the characters signing to each other, but at the same time you also see the other person reacting, and you as the audience, you just kind of build the story and go along with the story. And it's so masterfully done in a sense where it's like, because it is all masters, and I think it's super important to be able to see the immediate reactions, because especially when somebody's signing, if you're going to do an over the shoulder on the person signing, you're missing the reaction that's happening in that moment. So it's like, I found that super interesting. And it's like, I've always had the desire to make a film that's all close-ups, and then to make a film that's like just all master, and then maybe take the bold shot of like doing like a Birdman and trying to make it a continuous look or something, or like, what was it, 1917, the war one?
Yeah.
Something like that.
So that one, I didn't actually watch it yet, but everything I've read, like all the edits were crafted, right? Because they passed over someone's back, or no, for sure. I mean, there's so many great cinematic feats that have been done where everything was going on with the priests a few years ago. I forget the name of the film, but Spotlight? Spotlight. There was not a single close-up in that movie. It was all wide, 3 shots, 2 shots, handheld and really vague, and sometimes you're way back, sometimes you're real close. I was on a show like that, Stargate Universe, where honestly, as an actor, you never knew if you were on camera. And, the camera department whispering to each other while you're in the scene. And all of a sudden, Ryan's like following me, and I'm like, I guess I'm on camera now. But I loved it, and I think it really lent to it was another character in the show.
Yeah, no, I agree. I always enjoy those scenes where the camera is in on the choreography, because you're present in the scene as the actor, but then you're also present as you trying to be technical as well. And it's like this marathon of skills just going on in your head of, okay, I got to be able to deliver my lines, but at the same time, I need to move this way so then the camera can get around me and do this. And it's like, it's literally 2-3 voices in your head at the same time. And it's one of those things that I
love that you said that, because I think so many people don't really understand that the craft of an actor is not just our character, right? It's hitting your light. It's waiting for camera and knowing when camera hits you, they've got to focus and pan down, and you wait for them so that you can come back up so they get your reaction. Like it and all of that is shorthand.
Yeah.
That's stuff you learn on the job.
Yeah.
You can't really teach it. So I love that you said that. It's so true. I always say that, when I negotiate deals, I'm like, you're paying for experience. You're not going to waste 2 hours on me. I got you.
That's funny. No, that's true. Like,
and you realize it when you get on set, and your DP looks at you, or your operator looks at you, and they're like, and you're like, yeah, I got you. I'll wait for you. And they're like, oh, they feel safe. They're like, okay, I can do my job now because you can do your job.
Yeah. Now, with all your experience, have you gotten, where it's like, okay, we're going to need a 50 here, and then we're going to move into a 25. And then because I want to do a long, let's use a 100 or something. Like, are you that versed in camera lenses?
So I try to be. And it's funny because I'll talk to some directors, and I was like, the thing I'm most insecure about is that. And some directors are like, I don't even know what lens sizes there are. I don't have to know. That's not my job. Yeah. And other directors know exactly what lens they want. But I will say, I can always tell, and maybe I'm interested in your thoughts on this, I can always tell where a director came from. When a director comes on set and I meet them for the first time, I'm like, oh, you came up through camera, or you're a producer, or you're a writer, or you're an actor, turned director. because their skill set, the way that they work, the way that they deal with the crew, it's all sort of based on their comfortability and their background. I feel that's been my experience. I definitely, I play a little game with myself whenever I'm working. I'm like, okay, I bet you're there on a 35. And I'm like, what lens are you on? And I'll, more often than not, I'm wrong. But also because we can manipulate lenses now, right? We can zoom, we can, so, you know, I definitely do try to play the game. I'm like, they're far away, so they're
Oh man, it's cloudy out, so that's
yeah.
contributing to the crappy connection, and I apologize for that.
Oh, no worries. It might be
But
mine. Oh, I'm home, but who knows?
no, but no, this was fun catching up with you, and
I know.
I'm excited to send you my short. The budget to hire an entire lighting team. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna turn the final product into black and white.
Cool. What a great,
Yeah.
you like, that's resourceful.
Yeah.
I love that.
So that's like a little, that's my trick that I've kind of taken with me, where it's like, okay, if the lighting is really that bad, then I'll just make it into a black and white film.
I love that. But I mean, there's ways around that too, just to speak to the indie world for people who are listening, who are like, oh, I want to do this and I don't know all of this stuff. You don't have to. That's the whole purpose of having a team, having a crew. You know, we're not one people shows. Like, I made clear to, when I hired my DP, when I interviewed him, he has his own equipment. There was a lot of stuff that I wanted that I probably could have, like, because I invested in this and I spent $10,000. I could have gone over my budget another $1,000 and got all the equipment that I wanted. But I was like, I don't think I need to. I think I can get what I want without that. And so it became a choice for me, even though it wouldn't have killed me to spend the money. I specifically hired the DP that I hired because he has his own light set. He has his own cameras. We decided to do everything handheld or on sticks. And that became, you know, you can work within parameters. And I think as you move into like episodics or movies and you want like a big crane, or you know, these are all things that cost money, that cost time. And I think studios and networks, they're willing to submit to your vision as long as you don't fuck them. If you're gonna fuck them on time and you're not gonna get your shit, and it's not any better because you've spent $10,000 more or went 4 hours overtime and paid meal penalties to everybody, you're not gonna get hired again.
Yeah.
So, you know, you hear about these really difficult directors and, you know, they probably don't care because they're gonna continue to work. You know, this is another of our industry. So many bad people continue to work, and you're like, there's so many great people who deserve shots. But yeah, I think really being resourceful and learning to work within your budget and work within your skill set is another huge, or being creative, like you said, like, okay, I'm not necessarily going to invest in the lighting, and so I'm going to make it a creative choice. I'm going to make it black and white. It's freaking rad. I love that idea.
Thank you. Oh man. Oh yeah, no, this was fun. This was what's
when are you back?
Oh, when it gets warm.
Oh,
so
you are smart. I just escape
like,
every once in a while.
Yeah, that was like the big, I guess, plan with this was to enjoy my time where it's warm, and if work happens to call, then sure, I'll come back for work. But
that's the cool thing, right? We do everything online now, so you can literally be mobile.
Yeah, no, that
you
was
just
the
hop
big,
on a plane. It's work.
that was the big, I guess, golden ticket, was when everything went online because of COVID. I was like, I don't really need to be locked to the city anymore to be close to these audition rooms. So trying my best to just see where this takes me and enjoy life and enjoy the views and see what's around. Where should I go? Like you travel quite a lot as well.
So I love the South. I would definitely say stop into Atlanta. Atlanta's got a vibe. they've got a big film market too. New Orleans is, you're going to New Orleans, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, definitely spend some time in New Orleans. Like I said, I've always wanted to spend a lot of time in Alabama. There's so much history there. I used to live in Dallas. Austin's a really dope joint. I did 8 movies in Austin.
Nice.
At the very beginning of my career. New Mexico was great.
So like, I didn't know that Route 66 was like right in the middle, so it still gets cold. So I'm kind of avoiding that right now, but I do want to hit that. So, because like even the choice of going up to Atlanta, like it's getting a little chilly there now too.
Atlanta gets 4 seasons for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So right now, just trying to
well, yeah, stay south then. Stay in Alabama. Huh?
I'm just trying to hug the Gulf of Mexico right now.
Oh yeah. Well, Florida's a great one. Gosh, especially like the west coast of Florida. I was just there with the like powdered sugar beaches. Like, oh, they're so beautiful.
Yeah, I got I was lucky enough to make the last minute decision. We were driving up from Miami and then starting our westward route. So we are gonna drive up from Miami to Tallahassee. But then I decided to last minute choice. I saw the sign for Cape Canaveral and then just detoured out. And then we got there and we're at a restaurant. And then at the restaurant, we all of a sudden overhear this guy at the bar asking like, oh, where's the best place to view the rocket launch? And then it turns out that there was a delayed launch, SpaceX launch that happened, and it got pushed to the day that we were there. So then we were lucky enough to catch a live rocket being launched into space, Elon Musk style. Yeah, so that was
so
super
cool.
exciting. So
that's amazing.
I think that's one thing that I'm also trying to succumb to, is just to give in to the places that we go to and just see what kind of
NASA's in Alabama too, right? They have they have Huntsville. I think it's Huntsville. There's all like, it's like the middle of nowhere. I know this because Felicia Day grew up there, and she was telling like her grandparents are like rocket scientists and shit, and you're like, oh, that's a real thing. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of shit now. But actually, I'm going to be in Huntsville in April for a convention.
Nice.
So maybe that's when I'll go spend some time there if I don't have a show or anything going on.
Yeah, no, that'd be fun. But I'm looking forward to New Orleans for sure. I hear the food is amazing, and I love food, so I'm going to go.
There's the World War II museum is there, and it's I mean, you can spend an entire day. It is phenomenal. Other than like obviously all the culture of New Orleans. There's some great museums. There's this great witch museum. There's just so much there. Yeah, spend some time.
Witch museum.
Yeah.
Do I just Google witch museum in New
I'll
Orleans,
send you the one that I went to. There's 3 or 4 actually, because they've got the whole voodoo, all this stuff. It's really cool. There's so much stuff there.
Sweet, because my partner is definitely into exploring witchcraft and stuff, so I'll definitely look into that.
For sure.
Sweet, but
nice.
Again, thank you for coming out and joining me in my truck for the Play On Foundation presents 2 Degrees. It's called 2 Degrees because I didn't plan accordingly, and I put most of my appliances on one side of the truck, so the truck kind of tilts at 2 degrees.
Oh, funny. I thought it was 2 degrees of separation.
I like that too. Like, there's so many interpretations of how 2 degrees can play in. And then another one that we thought of was we were escaping 2-degree weather.
Right. I was going to say, does that have anything to do with climate? Yeah, that's great. That it is, because it just snowed here yesterday.
Jeez.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
I actually like it because I lived in LA for 20 years and I lived in Dallas before that, which is, we get some cool weather in Dallas, but it's for the most part warm. So I quite enjoy the seasons here. I'm really enjoying, and I love New York for the full 4 seasons. Not forever. I actually want to move to Atlanta, kind of my end game.
Like, I like snow, especially during Christmas, but the reality of it is I just like snow on Christmas Eve.
Yeah. You don't want to work in it. I was on set yesterday, like walking through slush and snow, and I was like, this is when we shoot inside, guys. Why are we outside?
Yeah. Oh man. I remember there was a day, there was a couple days where it was a night shoot and then they wanted me back the next day as well. But then that night it decided to snow. And so I had to leave my car at the studio and then they shuttled me back to town and then they picked me up in the morning and brought me back just because like the snow was insane. And Vancouver drivers surprisingly don't know how to drive in snowy weather. So
Well, we don't have the road care for it. Like it's not,
yeah.
To have the infrastructure to deal with snow when you only have it once or twice a year doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But it's like, don't try to drive the regular speeds. I don't know. I think that's common sense.
Yeah,
Especially
leave
coming
extra
from
time.
Toronto. Yeah.
Sure.
Where that's the main reason why there's all these accidents is because, oh, you're trying to drive the highway speed in the snow.
Yeah. Yeah. See, like my daughter. But it's the speed limit. I'm like, yeah, but there's cars in front of you. Jesus.
I'm terrified of snow in terms of just what it does to that. Not because of my driving skills, but because of the driving skills of others. It's a real anxiety pusher for me.
Yeah. Good. You're a snowbird now.
I'm a snowbird. Wow.
I love it.
I'm excited. But
Enjoy.
yeah, off to start the day and start the drive to Bama.
Yay! Oh, have so much fun. Gosh, do all the things.
I will try to do all of the things.
Okay, keep me posted. Tell me what you did because I'm interested for sure.
Sounds good. Thanks again for coming.
All right. Yeah, mwah. So good to see you. See you soon. Bye. Safe driving.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I'm a snowbird. Wow.
I love it.
I'm excited. But
Enjoy.
yeah, off to start the day and start the drive to Bama.
Yay! Oh, have so much fun. Gosh, do all the things.
I will try to do all of the things.
Okay, keep me posted. Tell me what you did because I'm interested for sure.
Sounds good. Thanks again for coming.
All right. Yeah, mwah. So good to see you. See you soon. Bye. Safe driving.